Our team was hired to produce candidate solutions that would reduce the risk of refugee radicalization in Europe. As we moved along our problem-solving process, we determined that creating an enforceable standard amongst refugee camps across Europe could curb the rate of refugee radicalization in UCOM's area of responsibility. We generated 7 standards, or candidate solutions, that were created from factors like law enforcement presence, job opportunities, and length of stay at the camp. All of our candidate solutions were derived from UCOM's values, and we believe that further development and implementation of one or more of the candidate solutions could effectively curb the rate of refugee radicalization in Europe.
Depicted is Wiki's morphological box, a method our team used to illustrate possible candidate solutions.
The remainder of this video will dive further into each candidate solution and how it addresses UCOM's values.
The first few factors we looked at were camp size, camp population, and law enforcement presence. The first factor deals with the size of the footprint of the camp, rated from small to medium and then large. We took this into account as a larger footprint means more space for refugees, but it also impacts how easy it is to police, as a larger footprint would require more law enforcement officers to cover the extra ground. The second deals with how many refugees we could hold in the camp, ranging from 1,000 to 10,000 and 100,000 refugees. This is important as it factors into living conditions. We do not want the camp to be overcrowded. However, if we have a small population, the more camps would have to be made to accommodate the amount of refugees in need of somewhere to stay. The law enforcement presence deals with how many law enforcement officers will be employed to police the camp. More officers will cost more, but will cover more of the camp and population. Some solutions were discounted outright because of an incompatible matching of a large camp population and a smaller camp size. This would have led to overcrowding, and the low standard of living due to this would increase radicalization, going counter to the intent of the camp standard. This meant that the solution 4 is not feasible, as it is a small camp size but a 10,000 refugee population. The weight of the rest of the factors depends on the client's values. If UCOM values a larger camp size in order to avoid overcrowding, then solutions 3 and 7 meet that requirement. If they prefer smaller ones due to a lesser cost, then solution 1 meets that requirement. Solutions 2, 5, and 6 meet the median value. For population, if the client values 100,000 refugees in order to field fewer camps, then solution 3 meets that value. The 10,000 refugee solution is solution 2. The client values easy policing, then the 1,000 population solutions, which are candidate solutions 1, 5, and 6, will meet that client's values best. Finally, for law enforcement presence, we used an analogous model to determine different ratios of police presences. We researched 3 major cities in the United States to come up with the ratios of law enforcement to population. The ratios we came up with were 4.2 per 1,000, 3.5 per 1,000, and 2.6 per 1,000 refugees. If the client values a larger police presence, the candidate solutions would be solutions 2 and 3, filling a force of 4.2 per 1,000 refugees. Should the client value a smaller police force in order to prevent the image of an overbearing host nation, solution 5 meets the requirements. Solutions 1, 6, and 7 provide a solution in between these two.
Another value measure is job opportunities. There are 3 possibilities for job opportunities, which are being self-sufficient, working for the host nation in a host nation workforce, and a hybrid of both. Providing job opportunities for refugees can instill a sense of ownership, allow them to be efficient in providing daily needs, as well as eliminate boredom, which can cause radicalization. If the client values refugees being self-sufficient, then solutions 2 and 4 are best. If the client values refugees working for the host nation, then solutions 1 and 7 are best. If the client values hybrid job opportunities, then solutions 3, 5, and 6 are best. The factors of method of standard enforcement would be to place economic sanctions on the host nation, withdraw military aid, or to withdraw economic aid. Method of standard of enforcement is important because UCOM needs to make sure that best solution would have the best legitimacy. If the client wants to do a soft blow while punishing the host nation, withdrawing military aid would be in the client's best interest, which is shown in solutions 4 and 5. If the client prefers to have much of a stronger blow, then instead of withdrawing military aid, the client can withdraw economic aid, which is shown in solutions 2, 3, and 7. And finally, if neither solutions are in the client's best interest, then economic sanctions could be in place, which is shown in solutions 1 and 6.
The next factor to consider in reducing refugee radicalization is the length of stay. Our team has broken the length of the refugees' time within the camp into 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years. The amount of time a refugee spends in a camp can have a significant effect on the amount of time it takes for the refugee's nation to be reformed. Additionally, the longer the stay, the more dependent a fleeing refugee could be on the host nation. If our client would like to have the ability to impact many refugees, then a quick turnaround of 3 years may be necessary. Solution 2 would adhere to this model. Our client could also lengthen the amount of time a refugee is exposed to these camps to 5 years, falling under candidate solutions 1 and 6. The need for longer influence may be a determining factor to a decreasing radicalization. Thus, solutions 3 and 4 could provide the refugees with that time. Lastly, the longest feasible time that our team suggests for a refugee's time within a camp is 15 years. If the longest stay is valued, our client should proceed with the provided solutions 5 and 7. The last factor our team has considered in order to resolve this refugee crisis is the type of aid that will be provided to the host nations. This factor is significant in order to incentivize the potential host nations to adhere to the standards set by EUCOM. If countries do not abide to the provided standards, then camps producing radicalization could still exist, and this would defeat EUCOM's purpose. Receiving aid will lessen the burden on host nations and simultaneously make the camp standards more appealing. If our client would like to extend this problem on other sovereign nations, the NATO military presence, economic aid, or a mix of both could be expected. Solutions 2 and 5 meet those parameters. If the U.S. should have more of a significant role in this crisis, then the U.S. military presence, economic aid, or a combination of both can be provided as seen in Solution 7. However, if our client feels a need to keep this issue more centralized, then the military presence and or economic aid can be provided strictly by the nations affected by the refugee crisis. Solutions 1, 3, 4, and 6 will satisfy this particular need.
Illustrated is our team's calculated costs for each candidate solution. Each cost was completed by analogous models, so are strictly estimations. The highlighted value is our team's recommended solution.
Our team has been tasked to generate candidate solutions that address reducing the risk of refugee radicalization in the EUCOM area of responsibility. Through research and analysis, our team discovered that the standard of living in current refugee camps across Europe have fostered a hotbed for radicalization amongst the refugee population. Due to this fact, we believe that EUCOM should develop and enforce a standard for refugee camps across willing host nations. In generating our candidate solutions, we considered a range of factors such as camp size, law enforcement presence, job opportunities for refugees, and the refugee's length of stay in the camp. From these variables, we developed 7 candidate solutions, all of which include a standard for refugee camps that are aimed at addressing EUCOM's values and reducing the risk of radicalization amongst the refugee population in Europe.